My best friend, F26, has confessed her feelings for me, F24. As I am in a monogamic relationship with my BF, M23, I realized that I also have feelings for both of them, and now I don't know what to do. I am feeling down at the moment, so I apologize for any grammatical errors. Fake names for clarity. I, F25, met my best friend Daisy, F26, around May 2021. We connected instantly and were quite close for a time, but after we had a conflict due to my disrespect towards her then-girlfriend over a video game, we were young and still are, we had a falling out and stopped communicating for the rest of that year. Soon after, I formed a close-knit friend group that included Levy, M23. However, towards the end of the year, Daisy contacted me again, expressing how much she missed me and wanting to know if I was interested in being friends again. I agreed, and we began chatting that same day. After a lengthy conversation catching up on each other's lives, as I was preparing to go to bed and turn off my computer, she sent one final message revealing that she had romantic feelings for me, which she quickly deleted. I then accepted that I felt the same way, so I replied that I also liked her and would love to explore whether it could be more than just a crush. By this time, Daisy was in a non-monogamous relationship with another girl, which was not an issue for me since I also consider myself non-monogamous, having had the tendency to fall in love with more than one person simultaneously. I was thrilled about her and talked to all my friends about how much I liked her. However, during our conversations and flirtations, I noticed a pattern where she would only fully reciprocate my advances when her relationship with her girlfriend was struggling. Gradually, I began to feel more like a distraction to her and less like a romantic partner, especially since her girlfriend was extremely emotionally distant with her. Then they broke up, and I thought this might be a turning point where I could express my feelings, but before I could gather the courage, she reconciled with her girlfriend, which shattered my remaining hopes that this could develop into something more. I attempted to move on. Eventually, I grew very close to Levy, and after spending more time together, I developed feelings for him as well. Shortly after we confessed to each other, he was aware that I was not exactly monogamous at that time and had even had an open relationship in the past, which ended poorly. So when we finally officially labeled our relationship as dating, we agreed to keep it monogamous. I did my best to explain how I function romantically and informed him that I still had feelings for Daisy, as those feelings typically linger for me, and we have now been dating for nearly 2 years. We experienced ups and downs, particularly stemming from unresolved issues from previous relationships. Despite everything, I never sensed that Levy was as open with me as I was with him. It is quite apparent that he struggles to express his feelings and has difficulty dealing with some of my personal challenges as well. Nonetheless, it has been a fantastic relationship, the best one I have ever had. The issue arose when, back in October of last year, after Daisy broke up with her girlfriend at the beginning of the year and moved out alone for the first time in a while, she reached out and expressed how she still loved me all this time, and how difficult it was for her to accept that I was in a monogamous relationship, which surprised her. It was a significant moment that left both of us hurt, and we decided to go no contact for a while. In the meantime, I tried to be as open as possible with Levy and discussed everything that had transpired between Daisy and me, including my past feelings, and how everything had unfolded from my perspective. I believe in open communication, but all of that created a significant insecurity regarding Daisy for Levy, which was contrary to what we had agreed upon when we began dating. Then at the end of December, when Daisy contacted me again, stating that she felt ready to move on, or at least we thought, so it became evident how difficult a time she was having without my support, as I had become fairly important in her support system, especially after her breakup. We continued conversing while Levy and I were back home for college. Daisy currently lives in a nearby state, so we had not seen each other in person since October, until one day she called me during a panic attack. She was still trying to give us both space after everything, but this time she genuinely needed my assistance to sort things out, and I patiently stayed with her through it all. This eventually led to last week when Levy had to leave early for his classes. We do not attend college at the same institution, but it is about a 2-hour drive apart, and I was left home alone, grappling with the pain of only being able to see him on weekends. despite spending a lot of our daily routines communicating through calls or texts. We both work from home, he at his place and I at my parents' house where I still reside. When I reached out to Daisy after he was gone, we attempted to converse as usual, but she appeared very downcast. I urged her to share what was troubling her. She then expressed that on the day she had her panic attack and called me, she realized she simply could not be just my friend anymore, and that she would fall in love with me over and over again, regardless of what she did. She felt trapped by her emotions, even though it was not my fault, and believed it would likely only result in her being continuously heartbroken over not having me as her girlfriend. Ultimately, she concluded that it would be best for us to stop communicating and end our relationship to spare us both the heartbreak. In that moment, I felt a surge of emotions and recognized that my feelings for her had never truly diminished. Ever since October, I had been denying that I still loved her romantically, not merely platonically, which made me feel terrible. After an entire night of discussing and crying about it, we said our goodbyes, and I blurted out that I loved her before returning home, feeling as though I had just witnessed one of my most cherished friendships fall apart, convinced I would never talk to her again. However, shortly after, she messaged me, stating that she had discussed everything with another friend who suggested that we at least communicate our feelings for each other and clearly express how we truly felt. After contemplating it for a day or two, I agreed and called her last night. It was a significant conversation focusing on how we perceived our past interactions while flirting and how it affected us. I finally conveyed how everything appeared to me, expressing that I felt like a distraction, that I had felt heartbroken when she reconciled with her abusive ex, and that the love I had for her had never genuinely faded, even now. The conversation involved many tears, and it felt immensely good to release all of this from our chests. Nevertheless, she also mentioned that it would be a shame to allow our feelings to culminate in such a tragic outcome. I began to consider whether there was any potential way to navigate this without me harming the hearts of the two individuals I value the most in the world. I genuinely believe that is possible given that we all reject conventional monogamy, and Levy and I have had several discussions about this, albeit in a more hypothetical context. However, I fear that the fact that it involves Daisy may make him feel replaced or hurt, and I know it will surely cause at least some pain. The truth is, I am trying not to lose either of them, even though there is a possibility of that happening. I also feel monstrous for harboring feelings for another person while in a monogamous relationship, yet I realize I cannot truly control my feelings and who I fall in love with. I would greatly appreciate advice on how to navigate this situation, especially regarding how to bring this up with my boyfriend. I truly dislike the notion of having to choose between them, and I understand that if faced with that choice, I would not genuinely be able to do so. Therefore, if anyone has any suggestions, I would love to hear them. Can I salvage this situation without ruining my life? Right now, I feel quite helpless, and I believe that if either of them left, I would never fully recover from it, which would likely place a burden on the remaining relationship. Story 2. I think I've made a mistake. I just ended my relationship with my mom on a bad note. I am uncertain how much today's decision will influence me. I feel conflicted, anxious, relieved, all of those emotions simultaneously, perhaps none of them. It's as if my mind is buffering and I cannot decide whether to cry, laugh, or simply sleep it off and pretend it never occurred. For some context, my parents have a significant age difference, like significant. My mother is 57 and my father is 82. There was never really any romantic affection between them. My father, a Western man, desired a family. My mother, a diligent but impoverished woman from an Asian village, saw an opportunity. Thus, they married, had my sister and me, and created a life together. From an outsider's perspective, everything seemed perfect. My father invested his life savings in building an impressive house in my mother's hometown. My mother, who was raised in a farming family with little wealth, suddenly became one of the wealthiest individuals in the village. People respected her, sought her assistance, and borrowed money. At some point, I believe that went to her head. However, my mother was never particularly skilled with finances, or decision-making, or forward-thinking, really. And my father, who is truly one of the kindest, most patient individuals on the planet, decided to teach her fiscal responsibility. By giving her complete control of his debit card. Yes, you can imagine where this is heading. Initially, little things began to change. We stopped our biweekly outings to the city, which constituted my entire social life. Then our meals changed. No more bread, milk, or meat, only rice, soy sauce, and whatever vegetables we could find growing at home. But I didn't really question it. Then came him, a man I nicknamed Uncle Tuk Tuk, because, well, he drove a tuk-tuk. He was amicable, always smiling. I didn't think much of it. Then he began appearing at our house frequently. Eventually, my mother constructed a small hut for him in our yard. After that, she started spending every night there, sharing dinner, watching television, sleeping there. And the most painful part, I was there too. I felt so foolish, so incredibly foolish. I sat there in that hut, enjoying various delicious dishes: chicken, curry, fish, sweets, completely neglecting the fact that my father was inside, sitting at the table alone, consuming plain rice and soup. Occasionally, he would have dessert. Probably the only thing he genuinely looked forward to, and I just didn't consider it. The thought brings me to tears even now. Anyway, fast forward a bit. When I turned 13, I relocated to another country with my father, and honestly, life improved. He received free health care. I learned how to interact with people, to raise my hand in class, to greet cashiers without breaking into a nervous sweat. My sister was supposed to join us too, but her passport expired, so she remained with my mother for a while longer. Eventually, she came to us. That was our first escape. Then COVID struck. My mother was alone in her hometown, lacking support, in a country that was severely affected by the pandemic. My father, being the good man he is, didn't want us to grow up without a mother, so he brought her over. For 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, she was like a transformed person. She prepared wonderful meals, laughed with us, and genuinely seemed pleased to be a family again. For a moment, I thought, perhaps she has changed. Spoiler alert, she hadn't. It turned out she had been accumulating massive debts in her hometown. Instead of assisting in our new country, she kept sending money back to address whatever mess she had created. She never contributed to the household. My sister and I had to work while studying just to keep things afloat. She began shouting and yelling, claiming she would leave, saying she would sever our relationship. But I also noticed she never struck us again. The Asian-style parenting seemed to cease after moving into our home. I suppose we are maturing. In a country where actions like this could lead to imprisonment. But it wasn't horrible. My life wasn't that unpleasant when I think about it. My father probably had it far worse. Then I discovered she had taken out large loans and used the house my father built his literal life savings as collateral. And my father, bless his heart, just accepted it. He allowed it to happen. He never confronted her, and that infuriated me so much. I told him when I was 11 or 12 that something was amiss. I insisted she was lying, repeatedly, and nothing improved, until now. At 20 years of age, I finally stood up. But I think I might have made a mistake. Yet I still couldn't shake the anger, the frustration, the weariness of dealing with my mother's constant deceptions. So today, I took an action I may come to regret. My mother went back to her hometown to address whatever lies and debts she had created, selling my father's house and permanently moving into our home. We all, including my father, prefer to sell that house, so my mother has no ties, no reason to return to send money back. Perhaps this will change her. Joke's on me. She continued to lie and ask for more money. She contacted my friend, whom I had just met at work, borrowed nearly $2,000 from her. My friend assumed my mother, being an adult who earns more than her, simply needed it for an emergency and would repay her gradually. Months passed, and my friend never received that payment, and I refused to pay my mother's debt ever again. I am fed up with it. I could only watch as my friend and her boyfriend of 3 years lost trust and were on the verge of ending their relationship due to my mother's selfishness and deceit. I could only assist my friend in explaining what happened to her boyfriend. I could only help her with her meals. It is often shameful, having someone close to you deceived by my mother and currently distressed. So today, I reached my limit. I called her. I reached out to my mother. I sought evidence. I wanted proof of every loan, every borrowed dollar, every decision she made. But of course I obtained none of that. Just yelling, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation. The usual. And then she uttered it. She told me she was through with us, that she wouldn't set foot in our lives again. Normally, I would have kept silent. But this time I stated, "Then don't." and I hung up. And now, I am uncertain how to feel. I glanced at my sister. We both understood that this might be the end of our relationship with our mother. She's softer than I am. Perhaps if she had made the call, it wouldn't have concluded this way. Maybe she would have managed it better. But concurrently, I'm so exhausted. I am tired of watching my father endure this. I'm weary of working merely to keep our household functioning while my mother depletes whatever remains. I'm fed up with being manipulated into feeling guilty. Yet, I contemplate the small memories. The way she used to bring me my favorite snacks from work, how she would tidy my bed when I was too fatigued, how she would occasionally prepare my favorite dishes. And I wonder, was she genuinely that terrible? Did I overreact? And now she has deleted her Facebook, permanently, which unsettles me a bit. I have no idea what is going to happen next. I don't want my last words to be what pushes her over the edge. I fear that the saying words can kill too may become a reality. I know she is not that type of person, but I genuinely do not know what my mother will become. But I also wonder if I could have approached it any differently. I'm scared I was too harsh, anxious that I might receive calls from unfamiliar international numbers, terrified that I have messed up. What if my mother was merely trying to rectify her mistakes? Should I have just been a little gentler? I don't know anymore. I detest this feeling. Stuffy, strange, 20 years of knowing someone gone just like that. I fear that anything could happen to my mother without our support. She would be in a country that offers poor wages, rife with corruption. What if my mother lacks the resources to care for herself? I know she is selling my father's house as I write this. It's just, what if something happens to her that no one should experience? I don't know. I don't know what to do. Story 3. I, 18F. Don't know if I can get over or forget what I saw and read on my boyfriend's 22M phone. TLDR, I discovered explicit pictures and messages on my long-distance boyfriend's phone while visiting his house for the first time. Hi, Reddit. I am not skilled at writing posts, and I struggle even more with expressing my feelings and thoughts, but I will make an effort to convey everything I need to say properly. I also request that you do not judge me for engaging in online relationships. I am quite antisocial, and this was the only means I found to connect with others throughout my life. Please forgive me if my English is not perfect, as it is not my first language. I, 18 female, have been in contact with this 22 male individual online since mid-2023. Around October of that same year, we broke up. We were friends with benefits at the time because he stated that he felt emotionally connected to another woman. I was upset, but I didn't take it to heart since I have become somewhat accustomed to such events. We continued to communicate because we remained excellent friends and had nearly everything in common. Our conversations were always warm and enjoyable. In December, he reached out, mentioning that he and that woman did not work out and that he wanted to revive our friends with benefits arrangement. This left me feeling quite disappointed, sad, and insecure because I have always had the sense of being a second choice in my own life. And it felt like this was happening again. Events when we met. He already knew her. So he pursued me, we ended things, so he could be with her, they split, so he could return to me later. I was genuinely fond of this guy from the start, as we shared nearly all interests. It felt like he was my male counterpart. We are both neurodivergent and atypical. I'm diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and he is autistic. It is likely that I was foolish for going back to him, but I decided to grant him a second and final chance. I made it very clear that if he chose to remain involved with another person, he would lose me romantically forever. He understood and agreed. Throughout 2024, everything was excellent. I would even say it was perfect. We openly discussed our deep feelings for each other frequently, and I believed we had something substantial. In August, I mentioned that I wanted to visit him in person. He lives one state away, and that is exactly what occurred. January 2025 arrived, and I went to see him. It was the best month of my life. He is so kind, passionate, loving, and caring. His family is wonderful, and he keeps everything clean and organized. I have never felt so accepted and loved in my entire life. However, something happened that shattered my heart into countless pieces, and I genuinely do not know how to move forward. One evening, he was in the bathroom and I was in his room. He left his phone with me so I could play some games. He had previously mentioned that I could look through it, so I thought, why not? And that is what I did. And I regret having done that. I found explicit photos and conversations from December 2023 until August 2024, just before I expressed my desire to see him. Why do I care? Because I genuinely believed he would not communicate in such a manner with others after we rekindled our connection, especially without my knowledge. Because I really love him. I genuinely feel a sincere bond with him. Why did this impact me so much? Context: he was a pornography addict, and he has completely stopped consuming it for approximately 7 months now. He always stated he never had a genuine reason to quit, but once I entered his life, he identified me as that reason, his words, not mine. During his addiction, he had an intense fetish and attraction to Asian girls and feminine boys, and I am none of those. I am not petite, I have brown skin, I do not have pale skin, I struggle with acne, I am a redhead, my hair is not straight and black, and I do not possess large breasts, thighs, or buttocks. I am the absolute opposite of what he prefers. I still haven't answered the question, why do I care so much? Well, those messages and images I uncovered, they all featured Asian girls and feminine boys. I am nothing like them. Is there anything else? Yes. From the outset of our relationship, he informed me that he had significant trust issues and would not even reveal where he lived, his appearance, or his name. I knew only his age and had heard his voice, nothing more. It was only after almost a year that I was able to see his face and the rest of his body, and I always respected that. But in those exchanges, he was sharing explicit photos with individuals he met that same day. Why did it take so long with me? Couldn't he trust me? Someone who consistently supported him, listened to him, acknowledged his unique interests, embraced his insecurities. But he could trust someone just for having a larger backside than mine, inviting them over to a hotel. Why? Why not me? On the same day I discovered the messages, we made peace and decided to start anew as an official couple, exclusive to one another, but I am uncertain if I can proceed. Since that day, I have been utterly devastated and desolate. I feel an empty void in my heart that cannot be filled with anything. Perhaps I am the issue. Maybe I experience emotions too quickly and intensely. Perhaps it is all my fault. If I hadn't checked his phone, none of this would have happened. I do not know how to resolve this, and I do not have anyone to confide in. I am unsure if I articulated everything correctly. As I mentioned, I struggle to express my feelings, and crying while writing this has complicated it. I apologize. Thank you for reading if you made it this far.